Okay, we're going to solve 1 and 2 step equations. And there are 3 things that I want to focus on. One of them is the idea of inverse operations. So adding and subtracting. Okay, they cancel each other out, right? Basically is what happens. So we have a positive 3, negative 3. These are inverse operations. If it's the same number, then they're considered to be the additive inverses. So positive 3 minus 3 gives us 0. Doesn't matter the order. Negative 7 plus 7 equals 0. The other one is the multiplicative inverses, and that's going to be multiplication and division. Basically, 6 divided by 6 gives you 1. 7 divided by 7 gives you 1. Okay. Now the property of equality just says do the same thing to both sides. Okay, do the same thing to both sides, and it'll stay equal. And in the order of operations, PEMDAS. Okay, starting off, we're mainly going to be focusing on this part. The idea is inside groupings, anything inside the grouping symbols, that's where you start, and then you work your way out. The next thing is E for exponents. So P stands for parentheses, but it's any kind of grouping symbol. E for exponents, and then MD, multiplication and division. And these two can go either way. It depends on where they are in the equation. And the same thing with adding and subtracting. So there's no real direction for addition and subtraction. So the two that you need to worry about, the two groups are multiplication and division. That comes before addition and subtraction. Now, if you think about an equation, let's say 3x plus 9 equals 27. So this is the number we're starting with. It's an unknown. We don't know. And if you think about the order of operations, the first thing that happens is we multiply. We multiply by 3, and then after that, the second thing we do is we add 9. And then once we've done that, we put them together, right? We combine everything, and our answer is 21. We'll solve a 2-step equation like this in a moment, but first we're going to solve 1 step. On a 1-step equation, we don't need to worry about the order of operations because there's only one operation. So if we have something like this, x plus 7 equals 8 plus 4. All you have to do is look at the equation, look where the variable is, identify the operation, and then use the inverse operation using that same number. So in this case, it's plus 7, so we're looking for the additive inverse, which is the opposite operation. So negative 7 is what we're looking for. We want to do that and use the property of equality. So we do the same thing to both sides of the equation. When we do the same thing to both sides of the equation, we keep it balanced. So 7 minus 7, 0. Bring down the x. Now x plus 0 is still going to give you x. 8.4 minus 7 is 1.4. So that's our answer. So you do the exact same thing if it's a multiplication or a division problem. So 8x equals 9. Okay. You look at this, ignore the other side. Once you've got the variable all by itself on this side, you just want to focus on the operation. So 8 times x, ask yourself what's the inverse of multiplication or multiplying by x, by 8 The opposite is division by 8. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. So we have 1x equals 9 over 8. 1x is the same as x. So we can write that, we can keep that as an improper fraction, or we can write it as 8 and 1/8. Or you can change it to a decimal, 8.125. Okay. Now, so we haven't had to worry about order of operations at all because we only had one operation. We don't have to worry about which one comes first. Okay, say we have something like this. Okay, now we have two different operations, multiplication, addition, and then there's our answer. So it's kind of like if you are given directions to Lawndale High School from your house. You should be able to follow those directions and get to the high school fine. And even if somebody does not give you directions to get home, you should be able to find your way home pretty easily just by reversing the instructions. Well, that's basically what's happening here. So these are the one-way instructions to get to 12 would be to take that number, multiply by 3, then add 8, and that gets you to 12. If you want to get back to what this number is, which is like our home, you start here, and then the last thing that you did, you do that first. So you reverse the order. So the first thing you do in order of operations is you multiply. Then you add, right? Okay, multiplication comes before addition or subtraction. But we're going to work backwards. So we're going to reverse the order. So we're still going to do what we did up here, inverse operations, okay? But we'll just do one at a time. So we have a positive 8. We're going to do the opposite, right? Subtract 8. We won't solve the equation in one step here. It'll take 2, but this one step should make it easier, should make it a simpler problem. So 8 minus 8 gives you 0. 12 minus 8 gives you 4. Now we can bring the 0 down, but we don't need to because 3x plus 0 is the same as 3x. Now we have one more equation and one more problem. We have a new equation and it's multiplication now. We don't have to worry about two different operations. It's just the one. So the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 3. So 1x, which is the same as x, equals 4/3, which is the same as 1 1/3. If we had x divided by 5 minus 7 equals 15, same thing. Normally division comes before subtraction, so we work on this one first. We go in the reverse order. Add 7, and we end up with x over 5 equals 22. Now we multiply both sides by 5. This becomes 1x, which is the same as x. 22 times 5 gives us 110. Okay. Now, one other one that might be a little bit confusing at first would be if we have something like this. Okay, let's say we have something like this. First part, exactly the same. Both sides, add 4 to both sides, because this is still multiplication by 2/3, by a fraction. This becomes 14, and we have 2/3 x. So this, you can think of this two ways, actually. You can think of it like 2/3 times x, or you can think of it as 2x, 2 times x divided by 3. So you can think of it either way, whichever one is easier for you. So for me, the advantage of thinking of it this way is then you could just break it down and do two different operations and do them separate. So I'll show you both ways. You can decide which one you like better. So if you think of it this way, what you do is you multiply both sides by 3. Now we end up with 2x equals 42. Now we have one more step to do. This is multiplication. We divide both sides by 2, and we get x equals 21. Okay? The other way of doing it would be if you treat it like a decimal. Now we're going to be dividing by 2/3, which is a mess. But if you remember, when you divide by a fraction, that's going to be the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So you flip it over, right? So the reciprocal is 3/2. This is a little faster if you are comfortable with it. So instead of dividing by 2/3, you multiply by 3/2. And what you end up with is 6/6. It cancels out, and you end up with x. Now here, you just multiply straight across. 3 times 14 is 42, times 1 times 2 is 2, and you end up with the same answer.